Our scripture lesson today is taken from the book of Psalms, number 46. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth should change, though the mountains shall shake at the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains tremble with its tumult. There is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy habitation of the Most High. God is in the midst of the city. It shall not be moved. God will help it when the morning dawns. The nations are in an uproar. The kingdoms totter. He utters his voice, the earth melts. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Come, behold the works of the Lord. See what desolations he has brought on the earth. He makes wars cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow and shatters the spear. He burns the shields with fire. Be still and know that I am God. I am exalted among the nations. I am exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Selah.
God is our... Oh, time out. Are you taking children? Any children that want to go to children's church? I know, you all wish you could go too. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. God is our refuge and strength. Or as the song we sang, a mighty fortress is our God, alluding to safety. We all like safety. If possible, we would all like to be safe. Safe and sound. We'd like safety to be a part of our lives. We go to extremes sometimes to find safety. We teach our children about safety. I forgot the children were leaving. I need their help, but there's a little story we teach our children about being safe. It's called Three Little Pigs. There were three little pigs and the wolf was threatening to get them. One of them had a house of straw, a house of sticks, and a house of brick. And the wolf came to the house and said, come out, or I'll blow your house down. Even though you huff and puff, you can't get me. And the wolf huffed and puffed and blew down the straw house, blew down the stick house, but the brick house stood. Oh, a mighty fortress is our God. Yet even if we're in the brick house, the electricity can go off. The water can quit flowing. We may need to go out and get food. We may find ourselves lonely and need companionship. Or we may find out that threat in our life of illness suddenly strikes, even though we're in a solid brick fortress. We're still not completely safe. I was tempted to say that safety is an illusion, and that may be accurate. I don't know, but most of what we call safety has to do with our perception. We think, oh, I'm safe now. And yet, who knows? We may be at a music festival when suddenly, out of nowhere, shots ring out. Suddenly we feel unsafe and we do what we think is the right thing. We throw ourselves to the ground. But when the shots are coming from the 30-something floor of a nearby hotel. That's not the safe thing to do. Or we may say, oh, I'm following all the rules. I'm not even speeding when I'm driving today. I'm being very careful with my driving, and suddenly from nowhere a car comes out and we almost have a wreck. We were doing everything right. We were being safe. And yet, there it is. We eat right. We exercise. We do everything we can do to keep ourselves healthy so we can be safe. When we go to the doctor says, well, I'm sorry, but these tests have indicated. What? Can't we be safe? God is our refuge and strength. Does that mean God is going to build a fortress up around us and nothing bad will happen? What does this mean? God is our refuge and strength. We want to be safe. And yet, we really appreciated, John, that you remind us of how that we're not really very safe at all. We've been talking about resiliency. Resiliency has to do with safety in the sense that we're not always safe. Resiliency is when trauma happens, when bad things happen, we can move on. One definition, resiliency is the ability to overcome challenges of all kinds. Trauma, tragedy, personal crises, plain old life problems, and bounce back, stronger, wiser, and more personally powerful. That's by Nan Henderson. Or another definition of resiliency, the ability to keep on loving no matter what. The ability to keep on loving no matter what. A friend from many, many years ago, that grew up in my hometown, a little bit older than me, was a wonderful woman. She worked in the local doctor's office. She basically ran the office, one of those kind of people. She was bright, vivacious, caring, and kind, and she was a fabulous musician. She played in bands, she played in gospel groups, she played for church, she played Sunday morning, Sunday evening, and Wednesday night. She played the piano, the organ beautifully. She could play any song, anything, and play it absolutely beautifully. And suddenly, one day, out of nowhere, she had a stroke. And she was taken to the intensive care unit, the stroke unit. She was in a coma for several days. Her life was touch and go. She did recover, but she was left with her left side severely impacted. Her left leg didn't work very well, and her left arm was basically useless. She could walk with a cane, especially if her husband or someone helped her. She got to the point she could get around. But that important, meaningful gift of music was gone. In a way, she'd lost part of her life because music was so important. It was just out of nowhere. She worked at a doctor's office. She was in good health. God is our refuge and strength. That's what the psalm says. A very present help in trouble. Now, let's say, oh, John, you're talking about stuff that's thousands of years old. This psalm. Well, excuse me, therefore we will not fear, though the earth should change, though the mountains shake in the heart of the sea, though the waters roar and foam, the mountains tremble with its tumult. Oh yeah, this is a long time ago. Oh, let's see, we're on our 4th hurricane now. Floods, rain, earthquakes, tornadoes, mudslides, drought, one of the worst famines in the world, on the brink in Africa. Oh, this psalmist must have read yesterday's newspaper. But, says the psalmist, there's a river whose streams make glad the inhabitation of God. Though the waters roar and foam, though there's chaos in the oceans and the seas, there's a stream, a life-giving stream of water, maybe even a baptismal stream of water that gives life, that nurtures us, that cares for us. God is in the midst of the city. God is with us. The nations are in an uproar. The kingdoms totter. Huh. Well, let's see. Oh, yeah, there's that place called North Korea. The nations are in an uproar. The kingdoms totter. Oh, yeah, there's Syria. There's Iran. There's Iraq. There's the United States. There are people shooting from hotels. There are people shooting each other in Lawrence, Kansas, and Wichita. I meant to ask Angela, but I think she told me that when she went to Church of the Resurrection last week for their leadership seminar, that Reverend Adam Hamilton shared with them that within the last 2 or 3 years, have you heard this? The last 2 or 3 years, he's performed 115 funerals for people who committed suicide. And we just had one here a couple of weeks ago. The nations are in an uproar. The kingdoms totter. Wait a minute. God is our refuge and strength. Come behold the works of the Lord. Now, let's see how God works here. See what desolations He has brought on the earth. Oh, now we're getting somewhere. Desolations. I like this. Desolations. All those mean people, all those terrible people, desolations. Now we're getting somewhere. Desolations. All those rotten scoundrels that are threatening us, that are killing other people, that are doing bad things. Desolations are coming. We're ready. You ready? God brings desolations on the earth. He makes wars cease to the end of the earth. He breaks the bow, shatters the spear, burns the shields with fire. That's desolation. Well, yeah, that's desolation, my friends. At least to our way of thinking. So North Korea threatens us with a nuclear missile. And we respond by saying, well, we're sorry to tell you this, North Korea, but we've gotten rid of all of our nuclear weapons. And we've parked all of our ships and planes. And we'll be glad to bring you food and medicine. But we're not going to do war anymore. If we responded that way, I'll bet at least 99.9999999% of us would feel, oh, God has brought desolation to our lives. We're not safe anymore. Be still and know that I am God. As much as I hate to say this, this is not about sitting around meditating. I wish it were. I think meditation is great. I think we all ought to meditate at least 4 or 5 hours a day. I think meditation is a powerful, powerful experience, but that's not what it's talking about in this song. It's a little bit like, I think almost all of us can identify with, it's a little bit like you're driving on the old family road trip with a car full of kids, and it's not going well, and you say, "Be quiet, or I'm going to stop this car!" Be still, and know that I am God. I'm exalted among the nations, and exalted in the earth. God is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. How in the world is God a refuge? Where was God last Sunday night in Las Vegas, Nevada, when shots began raining out and bullets came down on people at a concert? Where was God? Where was God when a psychiatrist in Wichita was accosted by a patient and knifed repeatedly? Where was God? Elie Wiesel, survivor of the Jewish Holocaust, which killed at least 6 million Jews, gypsies, gays, lesbians, disabled people, people considered not worth keeping around. Elie Wiesel was in concentration camp, and he tells the story of when they caught 6 people committing some sort of minor infraction against the camp rules. They were sentenced to death, and they were forced as people in the camp to go line up in front of the scaffold and watch the execution. And they were forced to look. If they looked down or looked away and somebody spotted them, they'd bash them with a rifle. Said one of the people on the scaffold that day was a small child. He said, we were forced to stand there for hours because the adults died rather quickly, but the child wasn't heavy enough. And we were forced to stand in front of the scaffold for hours. And Wiesel said he heard somebody down the line say, "Where's God?" The psalmist says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. As we've been talking about reconciliation, I've been referring to the book Option B by Sheryl Sandberg and Adam Grant. And in their book, they talk about another book called Post-Traumatic Growth by Calhoun and Tedeschi. Now, I got this book several years ago, Post-Traumatic Growth, but I never read it like most of my books. Love to buy books. Shh, don't tell my wife. Love to buy books, and then I keep them. Well, since Option B talked about this book, I thought, well, I got that book. I ought to read it. Well, in their book, Post-Traumatic Growth, Calhoun and Tedeschi say that we, you and I, can grow even if we experience trauma. And they talk about it this way, quoting from their book, and I highlighted it so I could find it. There it is. They talk about it this way, with this question. The person who's experienced trauma, they say, does the person now think of the life narrative, of their life narrative, as the story of a wounded victim or the story of a strong survivor? They say how we answer this question makes a difference in whether or not we have post-traumatic growth. Do we tell our life story as the story of a wounded victim or the story of a strong survivor? Came across another guy, wrote a column. His name is Peter Economy. I looked it up, that's his real name, or at least the name he goes by online. He's written hundreds of articles, but this one is titled Neuroscience. You can stay resilient in any situation, and he says resilience can be learned. We can build resilience. It's not just something that's innate in us. We can build resilience. But he says, here's how to do it. First step, he says, choose to reframe what is happening. Oh yeah, that's what Calhoun and Tedeschi says. Choose to reframe what is happening. Is my story what happened to me? I'm a wounded victim, or is my story, I'm a strong survivor? But then he says, not only choose to reframe what's happening, choose emotional balance. I thought this one was interesting. Choose emotional balance. He's saying what they've discovered in research is, if we look at what happened to us in all negatives, then we're not going to get very far. Also, if we look at what happened to us as all positives, like, oh, this terrible thing happened to me, it's the best thing that could ever happen. It's all good, it's all wonderful, oh, what a delight, I'm so thrilled this happened to me. If we look at it as all positive, we're not going to get very far either. Emotional balance. Be honest about what happened. Be honest about how it feels. But also look at the things for which you can be thankful, of the things that you can decide to be in control of. Next step, choose to let others help. We're back to that again. We really do need each other. Resilience is not just me being resilient, it's all of us helping each other. Choose to let others help. It's probably been a couple of years since my friend almost died from a stroke. She was doing pretty well, and one day she and her husband stopped by the church I was serving at the time to see me, and we gathered in the parlor, and she came in, he was helping her, and she was limping and on her cane, but she came in, was moving relatively well. She sat down in an easy chair, and I watched her after she sat down. She took her right hand and carefully lifted her left hand and placed it in her lap. We sat and visited, talked about our families. Families went way back, talked about friends. And in a conversation, she just casually mentioned, oh, I've been playing the piano and organ again. Well, gave me pause because I had watched her lift her left hand and place it in her lap, and she just casually mentioned, oh, I've been playing again. And I thought, well, maybe playing do, re, mi with your right hand. And so I said, oh, you have? And she said, yeah. I taught myself to play one-handed. And her husband said, hey, it's amazing. It's amazing. He said, you should hear her play. He said, people will come to church, or they'll come to a funeral, or they'll come to when she's accompanying somebody in a solo or accompanying a choir, and they will watch her play, and then pretty soon people will start looking and saying, well, I think she's only playing that with one hand. And then people will get amazed and say, she's just playing that with one hand. He said, this is absolutely amazing. And people are just, they just can't believe this. Oh, wow. So, I gotta look up the quote because I wrote down what she said to me. I said, wow, you must really feel good that you could play again. And here's what she said. Oh, it's all for the glory of God now. Before I played for me, I played because it brought me joy. Now, I play for God. Be still and know that I am God. But there's a great paradox here, my friends. Stop. Be quiet. And recognize God is God and I'm not. However, the only way God moves in our world is in and through you and me. Go figure. Stop. Know that God is God and I'm not. And remember, I am called to be God's feet, hands, arms, and voice in our world today. Stop. And know God is God. And remember, the only way God works is in and through you.